Help will come from the one, from the power, from the center of holiness, which creates the heavens and the earth. So we're going to start with that. And please, in your own places, if you're comfortable singing along, please do. And there'll be other opportunities to read and chant with us as we go through the Psalms together. But Essa Enai, we begin. Thank you, Joyce and Sam, for leading us.
Esa Einai El Harim Me'ain Yavo Ezri Esa
It's hard to imagine another day so shattering of history as today. Think about it. We woke up this morning aware of the history breaking events coming from Georgia. The first African American senator from the state of Georgia. The first Jewish senator, not just from Georgia, from the whole South. I think there might have been a Jewish senator back in the 1880s. History breaking, such a triumph of the possibilities of humanity and of truth and honesty, rejecting the corruption of some of the other voices in Georgia. Fantastic. And then as the day emerged, we knew this was going to be a day that was going to be difficult. We knew that this was the final day in a series of days from the election. We had the election on November 3rd. Then we had the day in which Each state had to say they were done with their counting December 8th. Then we had the Electoral College vote December 14th. And then we knew January 5th and 6th were two very important days in this process. January 5th, because of the runoff election in Georgia, and January 6th, because the ceremonial cherry on top of the cake takes place. It's simply a ceremonial action when all of those electoral college votes are handed to the vice president, to the president of the Senate, who's the vice president of the United States, and each state says, we've done it. We confirm it. Never before in history. However, for those of us for these past 4 years who have been learning from people like Professor Ruth Giat, remember she spoke at a CBST event on understanding tyranny back in 2000 and early 2017. Or those of us who have been studying the work of Professor Timothy Snyder, or listening to Masha Gessen, or listening to human rights scholars like Tanya Domi, and other students of totalitarianism like the scholars who wrote the book How Democracies Die, or Yasha Monk. In fact, in these 4 years, there's been an explosion of public intellectuals creating a body of work which none of us could have predicted. But those of us, I have to say, especially as Jews, boy, do we know about this stuff. Ruth Ben-Ghiat published this year a book called The Strong Man. Some of you remember when she spoke at CBST 4 years ago. Her specialty is Italian fascism, Mussolini in particular. All these 4 years she's been saying that Trump has been following not Hitler's textbook as much as Mussolini's for many different reasons. Her book, by the way, just came out. I strongly recommend it, called The Strong Man. And she said that somebody like a Mussolini or a Trump will do anything to stay in power. Norms are meaningless to them. Law is meaningless to them. There's only one purpose that they help to make a decision, and that's will they be able to stay in power, and will they be able to amass wealth. She talked about the cult of the strong man, bringing especially younger men to be fascinated and want to get their approval more than anything. Loyalty, like a mobster. And here we are. She said very clearly, once anything that looks like a legal option is closed, the next step is violence. Who among us could have imagined seeing the scenes that we saw today from our U.S. Capitol, scenes that we might have imagined or watched in other countries and shook our heads or said, it would never happen here. Or said, oh my goodness, how could that happen? How could it deteriorate to that place? We saw scenes that we can't imagine, but some of us could. Anyone who has watched carefully what's happened in the hands of strongmen understand that. So here we are. We have these things today that we've gone through, right? The celebration of John Ossoff, the first Jewish senator from the state of Georgia. Reverend Raphael Warnock, the first African American, a pastor deeply rooted in progressive religious values and understanding of what God wants from all of us. So we watch what happens, and the very fiber of maybe we had a little hope. How many of us felt, oh my goodness, there goes that hope? Or how can we recover from this? And this is what the struggle to be a human being is. To not say these things won't happen. How many times have you heard me say, it will get worse. Things will be grimmer than we can imagine. And our job is not to resist how bad it will make us feel, perhaps, but to recognize that the holy work is not to resist getting knocked down. It's going to happen, but to diminish the time between being knocked down, between going into that pit of despair and being able to get back up again, to develop our muscles, the muscles of gratitude, so that in terrible moments of despair, we're able to remember that there are deep and profound blessings in our lives. To understand that there are those who have had it worse, either in our moment of history, in other places, or our own families and loved ones have gone through historical moments even worse. What did they think as they saw things shatter as we saw today? Now we know we have so much work to do, but the first place is to remember that we are on this arc. We are on this arc that we talked about 4 years ago, that together we can survive through these moments of terrible crisis. And it doesn't mean every single one of us will physically survive. Because part of what we are suffering from is 10 months of being on a computer screen. 10 months of being afraid of COVID, 10 months of mourning people who have died, 10 months of watching a government be completely neglectful and allow for over 300,000 Americans and probably more. Every 35 seconds now, an American dies from COVID. And it's probably even more. So we are feeling battered and tired and we've exhausted and we feel like, oh, we can't even face yet another horrific moment. Who could watch those images and imagine this is the United States of America? Who wasn't triggered by images that we've seen of 1933 or 1938? Kristallnacht. Did you see them shattering the glass? Did anybody see those images where they took things and shattered the glass? Who could have imagined that undercover law enforcement had to stand inside the doorway of the chamber of the Senate of the United States with guns drawn, anticipating these violent rioters, these coup d'etat insurgents coming through the door? Who could have imagined? Who could have imagined watching them go through the Capitol building, the Senate, the House of Representatives, going into the chamber itself, going up to the dais and taking pictures on the dais like they now own and run this government? I heard one as a policeman was ushering him out of the building, and don't get me started on how do you just invite them to leave? Where are the arrests? I've been arrested many times in Washington, D.C. Nobody just asked me to leave. And I was right to be arrested. I was engaging in civil disobedience. I heard one of them, as he was leaving, turn to the police, who was asking him, shooing him along, saying, "Don't worry, next time we'll be back for you." This is America of 2021. I know that many of us and many in our community feel some sense of, we knew this was coming. This is resolved. This is making us feel over and over again like we are recurring our family, our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents. And here we are. But there's a difference, and we have to remember that. In 2 weeks, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be president. 2 weeks from today. We have to get through these 2 weeks. And we have to recognize that even after that 2 weeks, we are going to have to fight so hard. Something like this level doesn't just go away because there's a new president. And many of you have heard me say, we have to remember what happened in Hungary, that Viktor Orban was defeated in one election. He went into the opposition and created a movement for the next 8 years, came back 8 years of being out of office, came back with a movement of fascists behind him, was reelected, and he has, since his reelection, very consistently and very precisely dismantled the burgeoning democracy that was Hungary. Imagine what would have happened if those people entering the Capitol were black. Or imagine if they were Muslim, what the response would have been. For sure, we know and we see what the evil is underneath. We've seen what the power of words are, the power of language. And Ruth Ben Ghiat, one of the things that she points out, as we've seen and we know happens frequently, it happened with Putin, Masha Gessen has written extensively about this, is the way that they encourage violence from their thuggish followers and then distance themselves. Oh, it's not them. It's not him. It's not him. That's a classic, classic move. And in fact, for those, and I know there are many on this gathering who know well the history of Kristallnacht, the official Nazi party separated. They said, oh no, those were just thugs in the street who were just motivated by pure disgust, but they weren't representing us. So, friends, we have so much work to do, but first we have to pray. We have to take care of our souls. We have to make sure, we have to remember that the forces of evil will only survive if we roll over and say we've had enough, if we're done, right? If we don't have the energy to keep fighting. It's not easy, and I know for many of us we feel like it's been too much. COVID, being alone, isolated, being on computers to be able to have a social life or a religious life or an intellectual life or a family life or a friend life. It's enough. It's too much already. And a vaccine rollout process that could be run by a bunch of junior high school kids better. It feels like it's too much. And then the economy is collapsing all around us. It's too much. And then the political crisis. It's too much. But you know what? That's where being Jews and LGBTQ folks and our friends and family have a lot of strength. We can't lose our humor. We always remember that joy continues to be an act of religious and spiritual resistance. And we do what we can't do when we have no other words, when we don't know how to respond. We recite Psalms. We recite Tehillim. Psalms in Jewish life have been used profoundly. When there has been a crisis, a Jew reaches for the book of Psalms. When there's joy, a Jew reaches for a book of Psalms. When you feel full of anxiety and fear and not know what to do, we Jews, we reach for the book of Psalms. And so tonight, we're going to spend a few minutes reciting some Psalms together. We're going to start with reciting Psalms 1 through 10 in Hebrew and English. And then we're going to skip to Psalm 13, go to Psalm 121, and then Psalm 130. We're going to show them on the screen. And we're just going to go through it so you hear the rhythm of reciting Psalms. Psalms have power of sending out into the universe a force for the good. And it goes into our souls to comfort us and to give us strength and to remind us where and what is infinite and what is eternal and what is holy, and to continue to commit ourselves and our lives to be on the side of those things that are eternal and infinite and holy, and to fight against those things which are not. So we're going to start, as I said, by going through all these Psalms together, and then we'll gather together again. So we're going to have them on the screen, and then different people from our clergy team will be reading them so you can hear it, but we encourage you to read these together with us in Hebrew or in English.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Kleinbaum, for those words. Psalms do bring me strength. I'm a Syrian Jew, and it's a custom at Syrian Shivas to read Psalms 1 to 150 all the way through without pause. And there's a meditative aspect to this. I encourage you to follow along the words as you're able in English or Hebrew. And if the words are not accessible to you or they're too much, I encourage you to just let them wash over you. Before we begin, I invite us to just take a breath together. Inhaling and exhaling. אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים, ובדרך חטאים לא עמד במושב, לצלים יום ישב. כי אם בתורת אדוני חפצו, ובתורתו יחגה, יומם ולילה. והיה כעץ שתול על פלגי מים, אשר פריו ייתן בעיתו ועלהו, ולא יבול כל אשר יצליח. לא כן הרשעים כי אם כמוץ, אשר תדפנו רוח. על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט, וחטאים בעדת צדיקים. כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים, ודרך רשעים תאבד. Rabbi Kleinbaum needs to come off mute.
I apologize. Lama ragshu goyim ul'umim yehegu rik. Why do nations assemble and peoples plot vain things? Kings of the earth take their stand, and regents intrigue together against the Lord and against all those that the Lord loves. Let us break the cords of their yoke, shake off their ropes from us. The one who is enthroned in heaven laughs, and the Holy One mocks at them. Then the Lord speaks to them in anger, terrifying them in his rage. But I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. Asapra el chok Adonai amar eli b'ni ata, ani hayom yiladitacha. Let me tell of the decree, the Lord said to me, you are my son, I have made you this day. Sha'al mimeni v'etna goyim. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your domain, your estate the limits of the earth. You can smash them with an iron mace and shatter them like potter's ware. So now, O kings, be prudent. Accept discipline, you rulers of the earth. Serve Yud He Vav He in awe and tremble with fright. Pay homage in good faith. V'tovdu derech ki yiv'ar kib'at apo ashrei kol chosevo.
מזמור לדוד, בברכו מפני אבשלום בנו. אדוני מה רבו צרי, רבים קמים עלי. רבים אומרים לנפשי, אין ישועתה לו, באלוהים סלה. ואתה אדוני מגן בעדי, כבודי ומרים ראשי. קולי אל אדוני אקרא, ויענני מהר קודשו סלה. אני שכבתי וישנה הקיצונתי, כי אדוני ישמחני. לא אירא מרבבות עם, אשר סביב שתו עלי. קומה אדוני הושיעני אלוהי, כי הכית את כל אויבי לחי, שיני רשעים שיברת. לאדוני הישועה, על עמך ברכתך סלה.
For the leader, with instrumental music, a psalm of David. Answer me when I call, O God, my vindicator. You freed me from distress, have mercy on me and hear my prayer. You people, how long will my glory be mocked? Will you love illusions, have recourse to frauds? Selah. Know that that the Eternal singles out the faithful for God's self. The Eternal hears when I call to God. So tremble and sin no more. Ponder it on your bed and sigh. Offer sacrifices in righteousness and trust in the Eternal. Many say, oh, for good days, bestow your favor on us, O Eternal. You put joy into my heart when their grain and wine show increase. Safe and sound, I lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Eternal, keep me secure.
ומנצח על הנחילות מזמור לדוד. המראי האזינה, אדוני בינה הגיגי, הקשיבה לכל שבי, מלכי ואלוהי, כי אליך אתפלל. אדוני בוקר תשמע קולי, בוקר ארח לך ואצפה, כי לא אל חפץ רשע, אתה לא יגורך רע, לא יתייצבו חוללים לנגד עיניך, שנאת כל פועלי אבן. תאבד דוברי כזב, איש דמים ומרמה, יטעה אדוני. ואני ברוב חסדך אבוא ביתך, אשתחווה היכל קודשך ביראתך. אדוני נכני בצדקתך למען שוררי, הישר לפני דרכך. כי אין בפיהו נכונה קרבם, אבות קבר פתוח, גרונם לשונם יחלקון. האשימם אלוהים, יפלו ממעוצותיהם, ברוב פשעיהם, הדחימו כי מרו בך, וישמחו חוסי בך, לעולם ירננו, ותסך עלימו, ויתאלצו בך, אוהבי שמך. כי אתה תברך צדיק, אדוני קצינה רצון תתארנו.
For the leader, with instrumental music on the Sheminit, a psalm of David. O Lord, do not punish me in anger, do not chastise me in fury. Have mercy on me, Divine One, for I languish. Heal me, beloved, for my bones shake with terror. My whole being is stricken with terror, while you, God, oh, how long? Yud-He-Vav-He, turn, rescue me, deliver me as befits your faithfulness. For there is no praise of you among the dead. In Sheol, who can acclaim you? I am weary with groaning. Every night I drench my bed, I melt my couch in tears. My eyes are wasted by vexation, worn out because of all my foes. Away from me, all you evildoers, for the Lord heeds the sound of my weeping. God heeds my plea. The divine accepts my prayer. All my enemies will be frustrated and stricken with terror. They will turn back in an instant, frustrated.
Shigayon leDavid, which he sang al divrei chush ben yamini. Adonai, my God, in you I seek refuge. Deliver me from all my pursuers and save me, lest like a lion they tear me apart, rending in pieces, and no one save me. O Adonai, my God, if I have done such things, if my hands bear the guilt of wrongdoing, if I have dealt evil to my ally, I who rescued my foe without reward, then let the enemy pursue and overtake me. Let him trample my life to the ground and lay my body in the dust. Selah. Rise, O Adonai, in your anger. Assert yourself against the fury of my foes. Bestir yourself on our behalf, on my behalf. You have ordained judgment. Let the assembly of peoples gather about you, with you enthroned above on high. Adonai judges the peoples. Vindicate me, O Adonai, for the righteousness and blamelessness that are mine. Let the evil of the wicked come to an end, but establish the righteous. He who probes the mind and conscience is God the righteous. I look to God to shield me, the deliverer of the upright. God vindicates the righteous. God pronounces doom each day. If one does not turn back, but whets his sword, bends his bow and aims it, then against himself he readies deadly weapons and makes his arrows sharp. See, he hatches evil, conceives mischief, and gives birth to fraud. He has dug a pit and deepened it, and will fall into the trap he made. His mischief will recoil upon his own head. His lawlessness will come down upon his skull. I will praise Adonai for God's righteousness and sing a hymn to the name of Adonai Most High.
למנצח על הגיתית, מזמור לדוד. אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, אשר תנה הודך על השמיים, מפי עוללים ויונקים ייסדת עוז, למען צורכך, להשבית אויב ומתנקם. כי ארא שמך מעשה אצבעותיך, ירח בכוכבים אשר מה אנוש כי תזכרנו, ובן אדם כי תפקדנו. ותחסרהו מעט מאלוהים, וכבוד והדר תעטרהו. תמשילהו במעשה ידיך, כל שתה תחת רגליך. צונא ואלפים כולם, וגם בהמות צדי. ציפור שמיים ודגי הים, עובר ארחות ימים. אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ.
ומנצח על מות לבן, מזמור לדוד. I will praise you, Holy One, with all my heart. I will tell all your wonders. I will rejoice and exult in you, sing a hymn to your name, O Most High. Veshuv ovai achor, hikashtu veyabdu mipanecha, ki asita mishpati v'dini, yashafta lekisa shofet tzedek. You blast the nations, you destroy the wicked, you blot out their name forever. The enemy is no more, ruins everlasting. You have torn down their cities, their very names are lost. Adonai leolam yeshev konen, mishpat kis'o, v'hu yishpot tevel betzedek, yadin le'omim v'mei sharim. V'hi Adonai miskav ladach, miskav leitot batzara. יפתחו בך יודעי שמך, כי לא עזבת דושך, אדוני. זמרו לאדוני יושב ציון, הגידו בעמים עלילותיו. For God does not ignore the cry of the afflicted. He who requites bloodshed is mindful of them. חנני אדוני רעני, משונאי מרומי, משערי מוות. למען אספרה כל תהילתך, בשערי בת ציון, הגילה בישועתך. טבעו גויים בשחת, עשו ברשת זו, תמנו נלכדה רגלם. נודע אדוני משפט עשה, בפועל כפיו נוקש רשע, היגיון סלע. ישוב הרשעים לשאולה, כל גויים שכחי אלוהים. כי לא לנצח ישכח אביון, תקווה עניים תאבד לעד. קומה אדוני על יעוז אנוש, ישפטו גויים על פניך. שיטה אדוני מורה, להם ידעו, גויים אנוש המה סלה.
Why, beloved, do you stand aloof, heedless in times of trouble? The wicked in his arrogance hounds the lowly. May they be caught in the schemes they devise. The wicked crows about his unbridled lusts. The grasping man reviles and scorns Adonai. The wicked, arrogant as he is, in all his scheming thinks he does not call to account, God does not care. His ways prosper at all times, your judgments are far beyond him, he snorts at all his foes. He thinks, I shall not be shaken, through all time never be in trouble. His mouth is full of oaths, deceit, and fraud, mischief and evil are under his tongue. He lurks in outlying places, from a covert he slays the innocent, his eyes spy out the hapless. He waits in a covert like a lion in his lair, waits to seize the lowly. He seizes the lowly as he pulls his net shut. He stoops, he crouches, and the hapless fall prey to his might. He thinks God is not mindful, God hides God's face, God never looks. Rise, O divine one, strike at him, O God, do not forget the lowly. Why should the wicked man scorn God, thinking you do not call to account? You do look, you take note of mischief and vexation. To requite is in your power. To you the hapless can entrust himself. You have ever been the orphan's help. Oh, break the power of the wicked and evil man, so that when you look for his wickedness, you will find it no more. The Lord is king forever and ever. The nations will perish from his land. You will listen to the entreaty of the lowly, beloved. You will make their hearts firm. You will incline your ear to champion the orphan and the downtrodden. Let men who are of the earth tyrannize no more.
For the leader, a psalm of David. How long, O God, will you ignore me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will I have cares on my mind, grief in my heart all day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Look at me, answer me, my God. Restore the luster to my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say, I have overcome him. My foes exult when I totter. But I trust in your faithfulness. My heart will exult in your deliverance. I will sing to the Holy One, for the Holy One has been good to me.
Shir lamalot, esainai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, ose shamayim va'aretz, al yiten lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yiminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה שיר המעלות, ממעקים קראתיך אדוני. אדוני שמעה בקולי, תהיינה אוזניך קשובות, לקול תחנוני. אם עוונות תשמריה, אדוני מי יעמוד? כי עמך סליחה למען תברא. קיוויתי אדוני, קיוותה נפשי, ולדברו חלתי. נפשי לאדוני, משמרים לבוקר, שומרים לבוקר. יחל ישראל אל אדוני, כי עם אדוני החסד, והרבה עמו פדות, והוא יפתה את ישראל מכל עוונותיו.
Psalm 30 says famously, Yalin Bechi Ulaboker Rina. In the evening we cry, and in the morning comes the joy. And so much that captures a lot of what we experience in life. And part of being and developing our mature spiritual lives is to recognize that there is crying in the evening, but joy comes in the morning. There will always be another chapter. The ability to be resilient and to anticipate that joy comes in the morning is part of what we, as human beings, as Jews, seek. So I want to thank Dave and Rabbi James and Sam for leading this chanting of Psalms, and encourage everybody, those who are in the Psalms class and those who are not, to, when you don't know what to do, you pick up the Psalms and you chant through them in this way. And I want to offer my love and blessings to everybody. These are tough days we're in. These are tough days. Know that I'm thinking about you, that I'm praying for you. I ask you to pray for me, to pray for each other. The more that we fill the universe with the prayers, with the Tehillim, with Psalms, the more we can affect, I believe, the very energy in the universe. We have to pray with a great deal of intention, just as we act with intention, and I feel like both are central to my spiritual life. So tonight, we will separate from our gathering. We leave you with these Psalms and with knowing that we are all in this together. And we will build a foundation that will last way beyond our lives, so that generations to come will look back on the LGBTQS synagogue full of gay and straight and trans and bisexual, people who are non-binary, people who don't identify, and they will say there were some people who didn't give up, who were able to have muscles of resilience, because we have to be the ones building a foundation for the future, and we know it's going to be rocky. We know that. I'm telling you, it will be rocky, and it will be rockier. But our ability to reach into our tradition and into our souls and give each other love and strength. Do not despair. Be the reason that somebody else, despite what happened today, believes in the goodness of another human being. Be the reason that you have been put on this earth for this moment. And I said this 4 years ago at the Friday night service following the election. If you are alive now, it is because the universe has a plan for you. Because the Holy One who has breathed your breath into your body believes you have something that the rest of us need. And I need you. I need you. We need to be in this together. Friday night at services, we'll come together. This week we'll have Shabbat. We'll celebrate the blessings of this week. We'll lament the curses of this week. And I'm delighted to say that after services, Billy Planer will have a special Zoom oneg, a zoneg, where we'll talk about the events that took place this week in Georgia and their significance for the Jewish community, for the African American community, for those of us who are both. And we will keep on going. Just as tonight's Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer brought the Senate and the House back together again as soon as it was possible. as soon as possible to certify this election and to move on. That's what it takes. So please be with us, be strong, even as you break down and cry, even as you break down and wail, then we get back up and we sing these words from the Psalms. Ozi v'zimrat yah. God is the source of my strength. Whatever it is, however it is you imagine the power in the universe, reach out to where that power exists. Imagine you could reach out and know that that power is the source of your strength. You're not alone. None of us are. I'm praying for each of you. And I ask you to pray for me. Ozi v'zimrat yah. God, the Holy One, the one who has created me, gives me strength. Joyce and Sam are going to lead us in that. Did Sam return from? Joyce and Sam will lead us. Sam was having some Zoom issues. Sam, are you here with us? Or did we lose Sam? If we've lost Sam, Joyce, why don't you play it? Oh, no, here's Sam. All right. Okay, the wonders of technology. Baruch Hashem, welcome back. We can't hear you, Sam. You're muted. So Sam needs to unmute. Okay. Sam, could you just say hello, just so I'm sure we can hear you?
How's that for hello? Thank you, Joyce. Ozi v'zimrat yah vayehi li Yeshua. 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 Ozi v'zimrat yah vayehi li Yeshua.
And now we will end our time together with the prayer for our country, written especially for our community by Rabbi Ayelet Cohen 4 years ago, and which we will continue reading even after the inauguration on January 20th. So if we could have the prayer for our country, we'll say the whole thing tonight to end our time together. Please join with me in your, wherever you are, as we pray for the country and we pray for our world. Our God and God of our ancestors, bless this country and all who dwell within it. Help us to experience the blessings of our lives and circumstances, to be vigilant, compassionate, and brave. Strengthen us when we are afraid. Help us to channel our anger so that it motivates us to action. Help us to feel our fear so that we do not become numb. Help us to be generous with others so that we raise each other up. Help us to be humble in our fear, knowing that as vulnerable as we feel, there are those at greater risk and that it is our holy work to stand with them. Help us to taste the sweetness of liberty, to not take for granted the freedoms won in generations past or in recent days. To heal and to nourish our democracy, that it may be like a tree planted by the water whose roots reach down to the stream. It need not fear drought when it comes, and its leaves are always green. Source of all life, guide our leaders with righteousness. Strengthen their hearts, but keep them from hardening, that they may use their influence and authority to speak truth and act for justice. May all who dwell in this country share in its bounty, enjoy its freedoms, and be protected by its laws. May this nation use its power and wealth to be a voice for justice, peace, and equality for all who dwell on earth. May we be strong and have courage to be bold in our action and deep in our compassion, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, to uproot bigotry, intolerance, misogyny, racism, discrimination, and violence in all its forms, and to celebrate the many faces of God reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity, to welcome the stranger and the immigrant, and to honor the gifts of those who seek refuge and possibility here, as they have since before this nation was born. Let justice well up like waters, and righteousness like a mighty stream. And let us say, Amen. Blessings to everybody. Stay safe, be kind, and be full of courage.